What is up, Pitt fans? Welcome to another edition of the PG Pitt Show brought to you by FanDuel. I'm Stephen Thompson. That's Abby Schnable. We cover Pitt athletics for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and we are coming to you talking still about Pitt's 65-62 loss to Boston College on Wednesday night. And, it was a bad loss, but also we're taking a kind of forward-looking approach here. Still doesn't look great because at this point, Abby, Pitt is tied for the worst record in conference play in the ACC. The ACC only takes 15 teams to the ACC tournament, and Pitt right now is on the outside looking in. So I guess, how optimistic, how do you look at their kind of postseason chances at this point? It always been kind of a given, at least under Jeff Capel, given the number of teams and, honestly, how well they had played, especially in recent years, that they were going to make the field, even if they were a double-digit seed. But there's a world, and it's not all that unlikely, that Pitt does not make the tournament altogether, that they don't play any postseason basketball this year.
Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's kind of a long shot at this point, especially when you consider the Boston College win would have gone a long way just because Boston College is one of those bottom teams alongside them. And at this point, if you pull out a win against the teams that are around you, it's more of a 2-game swing because it also gives you tiebreakers. And the benefit is that they do still have a few of those, bottom teams that they could pull out wins against to put them forward. And Pitt actually controls a lot more of its destiny than it seems because of the fact that they still have teams like, Florida State, Notre Dame, Cal, and Syracuse, still kind of around them and still on the schedule. So if they can take care of those games and then get a few wins elsewhere, like maybe against NC State, SMU, or heck even upset one of the big dogs in the league right now, it changes the perspective. But the problem is Pitt almost looks different night to night, and we've seen over and over again that they're just inconsistent. So even though some of these games are teams that they should take care of, so is Boston College. So it's a little bit grim at this point because you're going to need to pull out, a pretty clean slate against the teams that you need to win against. And I'm just not sure we've seen that from Pitt to be confident about right now.
As of right now, Ken Palm predicts them to win only 2 of their remaining 12 games. That's a couple of home games against Notre Dame and Florida State. That Notre Dame game on February 21st and that Florida State game on March 3rd. Right now, Pitt's sitting with 1 win in the league. Even if you take care of business against those teams that you theoretically should beat, or that at least the computers think you should beat, and those are by tight margins as well, you still need to pick off, one of these teams. I'm thinking about Wake Forest, NC State on Saturday, SMU, Stanford, Cal on that West Coast swing in late February, and maybe even Syracuse in the last game of the regular season. They are going to have to beat a team that's playing better than them. And I don't think that's impossible. We saw them play a really competitive game against Miami. We saw them really give Clemson all they could handle, and they pushed Syracuse in that second half. If you don't go down, I forget maybe it was 19-4. Was that, am I remember correctly? In that Syracuse game, I think they were down 15 pretty early. You get off to a better start, and we're talking about something different. So I do think this team is capable of picking off one of those, theoretically better teams, even if there's kind of a cluster in the ACC. Like you said, the consistency night to night is something that you just can't count on from this team. The kind of saving grace will be that they really only need to win 3 more games, I think, to, if we're talking about, magic numbers or something like that. It doesn't feel like they need to win that many games. But it does include taking care of business against the Notre Dames and the Florida States, who are going through rough seasons, have some injuries, things like that. And it's just not something that I can count on. Like that Boston College game was really a fight for the bottom, or a fight to avoid getting to the bottom, and Pitt lost it. That's something that's going to really set them back. That was just a huge missed opportunity. So now you have to go steal a win against someone that you probably shouldn't beat. I will say, though, they play a really tough stretch, 5-game stretch at the end of February, going into the end of January, going in the middle of February. It starts with, a road game against Clemson. Then they hit the road again to play Virginia, home against SMU and Duke, and then on the road again against North Carolina on Valentine's Day. And Look, there's just speaking, kind of going hand in hand with the consistency thing. Pitt isn't really they can't reliably beat the teams that they are better than or on even footing with night to night. But I think it kind of swings the other way too. Like I think
Yeah.
this team can punch above its weight at certain times too. I think the Penn State win kind of is an example of that, but really the Ohio State win as well, and even those games against Miami and Clemson. I really think Pitt's gonna steal one against one of these better teams in the ACC. Jeff Capel has a pretty good record against North Carolina in his career. SMU, if they're not knocking down threes, if you get them on a cold night, that's one that you could steal as well. Virginia, I don't think Virginia is impervious at all. And like we talked about, Clemson, they played a close game against them. Duke, maybe not as much, but I do think there's going to be an opportunity for an upset there. And I have no really rhyme or reason for it, other than maybe some vibes-based impressions. But I do think that by the end of this season, Pitt is going to steal one against maybe a ranked opponent or one of these top 5 or 6 teams in the ACC.
And that's the thing is that Pitt, other than the Louisville game, Pitt has been competitive in every single game it's played. So it's not like they're getting blown out every single night. Again, Louisville is an exception, and you kind of assume that might happen against one of these other, heavyweights, I'm going to call them. But the benefit of, it's awful to say, but the benefit of where Pitt is they're playing with house money against those teams. They've got nothing to lose against a Clemson, a Virginia, a Duke, a North Carolina. One win there buys forgiveness elsewhere. Like if you're not able to pull out, one of those wins against maybe Cal, Syracuse, Wake Forest, but you're able to squeak out a win against SMU or Virginia, that gives you a lot of wiggle room. And especially if, you said magic numbers probably around 3, and I think that's fair, but then you're doing a lot of scoreboard watching. I think if they're able to get 5 more or 6 more, they're sitting fairly comfortable. Obviously still a little bit more scoreboard watching. The problem is like, I don't think there's a situation this season in which Pitt is going to be sitting comfortably heading into when we're deciding the bracket. I mean, I will say, yes, they should have won the Boston College game. And I know Stephen likely talked about this in his podcast the other day, is like, as upsetting as that game was, there was a lot of good things that kind of came out of that. The biggest one for me was like, if you're able to have Macari more in the mix, like I think that does, add just another option, change a little bit. And then if Damarco Minor can, stay out of foul trouble and not, hockey check people, I think that also changes things too. And so, it's not unrealistic that they're going to get into the ACC tournament. It's just a hard path, but it's a path that they put themselves in. And so if they can lock in, I don't see why they can't be in the tournament. But that's, again, goes back to the inconsistencies. I'm not sure we've seen them lock in for a whole 40 minutes other than against Georgia Tech, and then definitely not lock in 2 games a week.
Yeah. It's gonna be hard for them to, I think, string wins together. I will just point out that if they win 6 more games in ACC play, that means they've gone 500 down the stretch, which I think would be a really impressive thing. So like if we're just talking about trying to get them over the hump, that's where I think 2-3 more wins. That's probably all you need. You have to see what else everyone else in the ACC does. But given where we are in ACC play right now, things are not looking too good for Pitt. I would say, I don't know. I think it's closer to 50-50 than it is anything else that Pitt does or doesn't make the ACC tournament at this point. I think this NC State game will be a good indicator because that's a good team, but not necessarily a powerhouse, but definitely a lot better than a Boston College. Seeing how they can compete in that game if they can pull out a win at home. It is also interesting that I mentioned that really brutal stretch in early February. 3 of those 5 games are on the road, and Pitt tends to, I think, play a little bit better away from home. Oddly enough, I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but just something to look out for as well. So we are on ACC tournament seeding watch early in what is this? Oh, it's January still. But Abby, I mentioned that NC State game, kind of a big one for Pitt at the Pete, an opportunity to bounce back. An NC State team that's that had stumbled a little bit early in their non-conference play. They were 5-3 at one point, but I think they've only lost 3 of their last 11 games, so they're 8-3 over their last 11. Seem to have kind of figured things out a little bit. But as of right now, our friends at FanDuel have them as 4.5-point favorites at the Pete on Saturday afternoon. So let's do some game picks. What do you think about that NC State 4.5-point favorite line?
I think NC State is likely to cover it. I will add the caveat that I feel like Pitt does tend to play better after a loss, which is hard to say because they lose so much at this point. But after the loss against Boston College, I specifically think that they're going to come in really hungry. And knowing that NC State is 5th in the league right now with a 4-2 record, like, maybe Pitt's able to, rally. I do right now give it to NC State, but I'm probably saying that just because of the aforementioned inconsistencies that Pitt has.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at, Pitt doesn't play very well at home. They seems to be kind of not where they play as well. I do think that Pitt is going to keep it close. Like you said, that coming off of a loss, I think they are going to be motivated. I think, they have put some better things on film. I think, you mentioned Macari more. I think anything they can do to kind of lengthen the lineup a little bit, ensure that guys have fresher legs later in games, I think that's really going to help. I think sometimes you see them play a lot better in second halves than you do in first halves, especially in ACC play. So I'm interested to see how deep Jeff Capel goes in this game. Is he playing, Kieran Mullen only, I think, chipped in like 5 minutes, but can you get 7 or 8 minutes out of Kieran Mullen? Can you get 10 or 12 minutes out of Macari Moore? Right. I think that really changes things, just allows them to run in transition a little bit, opens up their offense a little bit more, and allows them to be, I think, more aggressive on defense. Just the energy is able to stay up a little bit more. So I think I fall on the same side as you. Hard to pick against NC State covering that in this game, but I do think that the game will be closer than, it'll be decided within single digits, and I think within a couple of possessions. It won't. I would be pretty surprised if this one ends up being a blowout. How about the over under 150.5 points? Do you think that this game goes over or stays under?
I think Pitt's defense has been holding teams pretty decently lately. But at the same time, thinking back to the Boston College game, 65-62, you know what? I'm going to take the under for today, but I'm probably going to be wrong. I like both of these teams' defenses. So yeah, maybe the under.
I think Pitt's pace is going to play a big part in this. And I said they have an opportunity to kind of get going and transition a little bit, but still Pitt plays at I think, a bottom 20 pace in Division I. I haven't checked the numbers after that Boston College game, but I think that alone is really just going to make this a slow grinding game. And, it's going to get a little bit ugly, and it's just going to artificially keep the point total low. So I'm with you. I'm taking the under in that game. I will be there at the Pete on Saturday afternoon for a noon tip, hopefully getting out of there before the snow, the real bad snow really hits. But we thank you all for joining us for this episode of the PG Pitch Show. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a thing. Follow all of our written work at post-gazette.com. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.